Condom is control domination, is the obsession, is the passion. Condom's concerned with suppression, intimidation, manipulation, organisation, call it what you will, by the forces of control. So we're talking about things like religion, politics, society, the educational system, and the media. And that's the negative side of it, really. But on the positive side, Condom's concerned with individual potential, the idea of personal self-fulfilment, the search for a personal fate in life, really, or the need for a personal fate in life. So, on the one hand, you've got sort of mass psychology, mass culture, mass media, mass mentalities, ranged, on the other hand, against what you might call the individual psyche. And okay, our opinions, our views on these subjects might be considered strong. Well, maybe they are, but we're talking about things like repression, deprivation, subtle and not so subtle brainwashing, about what we think and what we do, and that sort of thing demands a strong defence, and it demands a strong response. Yes, we've had some harsh things to say for the so-called cultural establishment, particularly in the UK. We've criticised the music scene, promoters, club and venue managers for their tunnel vision, lack of imagination in what they're prepared to book. We've criticised the art world for their elitist attitudes, whole elitist mentality. You know, if you haven't got a fine art degree, what on earth are you doing in this gallery or in this performance space? And I guess we've had some harsh words for the condom audience as well, and for the experimental and industrial networking in general. Again, I suppose for narrow-mindedness and for conditioned responses to things as well. So why do we use music, visual media and performance as vehicles? Why don't we move into, say, politics or local government? Well, condom's not political. It's not apolitical either. Politics are a concern. But we're just not interested in the sort of left, right and all shades between circus. You know, the sort of subtle nuances of policy and thought which supposedly differentiate between all the different actors in the political game. But in reality, just show us how basically all alike they are. And condom's not about politics or about day-to-day government in this mundane sense. I mean, take White House, for example. I mean, love them or hate them, but they've already given us the definitive statement on politics. Brief loud noise, long silence. And ultimately, it's just vacuous. So, yeah, I mean, but politics are a concern, insofar as they contribute to and bear down on our lives. Condom is about stimulating some consideration of individual sufferings, individual goals, directions, possibilities in relation to political forces, and also in relation to other forces, education, society, etc., the things I've talked about earlier. But really the concerns of condom are too philosophical, too fundamental, too overarching really to sit easily in any way within a political arena. choice of music as a vehicle for condom ideas rather than anything else, although there are other elements, and we'll come to that later. But the choice really stems from two things. Firstly, I see it as a more populist mode of expression. It's potentially more accessible, it's more appealing, particularly to a younger audience. I mean, that might sound a bit a strange thing to say, but there's perhaps limited point in trying to reach a more mature audience, which is more likely to be set in its ways, immovable if you like. The sort of inertia that tends to come with age and with decades of conditioning. And I tend to see older people generally as being less receptive to ideas. I mean, okay, it's a generalisation, but I think it's rooted in some degree of truth. But that's not to say that we don't want to communicate with older people, and we don't want to exclude anybody. And I suppose to directly contradict myself, I'm perfectly willing to admit that older people are more receptive to, or are receptive to, the sorts of ideas that we're putting across. But I would say that it's a minority reaction, and there's probably more chance of being listened to by a younger audience. The second reason for choosing music is really because it's music, films, the written word, amongst other things, sex, for example. But it's these sorts of things that make me personally feel alive. not just any music or any films, obviously, but anything that's intelligent or powerful or beautiful, that's able to communicate ideas and insights to me. Those are the sorts of things that make me feel good and sit up and take some notice. And the aim of Condom is to similarly move and stimulate people. The chosen medium, our chosen medium, is a mixture of sensory confrontation and musical sound taken to its ultimate extreme. Pure, brutal noise. I suppose a simple way of putting it, it's an extreme, pure vehicle for extreme, pure ideas. The old charge, isn't it, that shock tactics, quote unquote, are somehow passé, not effective anymore, out of fashion with so-called industrial audiences. And what are we supposed to do then? Should we adapt to accommodate this? Should we alter tack, adopt new methods to get our message across? And maybe we should just strip everything down and just leave a voice and a naked set of ideas. As I frequently say to people, Condom is control domination. By its very nature, it's about either overtly or insidiously shocking, provocative processes. And provocation and shock tactics are a logical and valid response. Now, as to whether that approach is effective, then that's open to debate, but it's the chosen method, and there are no plans to fundamentally change it. I mean, there may be variations in approach within those set parameters, but no radical shift. And, I mean, audiences, for industrial music or for anything else, will always be fickle. And their fickleness is just an irrelevancy as far as I'm concerned. And Condom's not in the business of pandering to either an existing or any potential audience. If they like it, they stay. If they don't, they go. But I freely admit that our confrontational, bludgeoning approach, particularly the sound, can have the effect of actually obscuring the Condom message, and that's unfortunate, but But if it's a recording, listen again. If it's live, come back next time or get hold of the recordings. If people are interested, they'll do that. If they're not, they won't. And I'm not prepared to present information to people on a plate. I mean, the aim, for God's sake, is to stimulate some thought. And what we're seeking to do, or seeking to generate through the sound and through the visuals, are the instruments of control: fear, hate, pain. We want people to feel these things, to know them for what they are. We want to try and provoke resentment and confusion and anger, which really are more fertile ground for questioning, for analysing, for thinking. And maybe not there and then, maybe later, afterwards, but that's fine. The best music, the best film, the best sculpture, whatever, is that which you're still thinking about or talking about days, months, years afterwards. And sound, of course, is just one element of the approach. Condom is a multimedia unit. It utilises film and slide projection, posters, flyers, artwork, text, publication, packaging techniques, even the occasional interview. And there are many devices which we use within the overall approach. Yeah, Condom's been around quite a long time now, and we've just actually passed the 10-year milestone. But if you look at live gigs, apart from the ones that we've organised ourselves, or reviews or interviews, you can probably count those on the fingers of one hand. I mean, okay, we don't go in for much self-promotion or publicity. We've got more important things to do, but I suppose it would be reasonable to expect at least a degree of interest or acceptance, particularly here in the UK. But of course we're not alone. There are others like the Grey Wolves and Muslim Gores, for example, who are also pretty much ignored here, both critically and popularly. I think what we all have in common is a preoccupation with the unpalatable in life, looking at things which people either prefer not to think about, or which have never even occurred to them to think about. Because it's in the interest of the control forces, in inverted commas, to steer people away from asking too many fundamental questions. And looking at things in an uncomfortable way. not linked to any clearly identifiable set of values or political ideas, not left or right or whatever, in the way that, say, issue-led groups like Crass or Chumbawamba or Consolidated are. An acceptance of those sorts of groups and their views is, in a sense, politically correct, or is allied with a movement or a cause, or anarchism, animal rights, or whatever it happens to be. The preoccupations of condom and maybe the Grey Wolves and Muslim Gauls as well, and the lack of any recognisable handle to grab hold of or any real means of orientation, I think makes for a more uncertain or risky package which people tend to shy away from. On the other hand, maybe we're just not fashionable, haven't embraced the techno dance beat or relapsed into ambient chill out, not in the NME or the indie chart, don't make guitar noise. Or maybe no one knows about us. Maybe promotion and publicity are things we should concentrate on, or maybe everyone just thinks we crap. I mean, any which way, it's fine by me, because on one crucial level, condom is about self-fulfilment. It helps to keep me sane. It's an emotional and intellectual release. It's a vital means of personal expression. And it at least functions for me in the way it's intended to function for others. In a way, the Eighth Pillar LP represented the culmination of the first 10 years, both thematically, as a logical consummation of many years' exploration of faith, sort of focusing down from the generality of religious faith to a very personal, individual faith. So, not only thematically, also in terms of the development from cassette culture to other recorded formats. The release of debut CDs in the coming year, a 3-inch on Tesco to be called Acts of Faith, followed by a full-length CD called Control Domination on Sounds for Consciousness Rape, in spring next year, 1994, perhaps herald the next 10 years. The methods and mode of operation will remain the same, but greater use will be made of other media and other means of communication. The use of the CD format is one example of this, and 1994 should also see Condom on video. There's a release due on Tesco, a document of the first Heavy Electronics Festival, which was held near Mannheim, and which also features the Grey Wolves and Genocide Organ and Bride to Death Now. And secondly, a video compilation being produced by Old Europa Cafe in Italy, which again will have Genocide Organ featured, plus the Haters, Rudolph of Schimpflug, Japanese group CCCC. So there's a branch out into video, and Condom should also be seen in exhibition context in 1994 as well. I suppose the context in which I'm speaking to you now signals a further broadening of approach. So perhaps a little bit of variation in the way we present ourselves. But the basic theme will remain the same. Condom is control domination and always will be. But its sheer enormity and its many faces mean that different sub-themes and obsessions will inevitably emerge in the future. And even in the 10 years to date, we've only touched on the subject. We've touched on so little, really. The forthcoming Control Domination CD serves as some kind of declaration of intent for the next decade. It's a kind of tour of what you might call the millstones and milestones of existence. There are nods back to some of our previous concerns, personal faith and self-knowledge, for example, and point us to some possible future directions, societal conditioning, the mechanics of control. But it's really a restatement of the terms of engagement and a reaffirmation of what Condom's all about, which is the final and inescapable reality, if you like, that whether we like it or not, we are all subject to control domination.
Control, 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 control,